They'll say they just want to be friends. They'll keep it light, casual, safe. But here's the truth. It's not that they don't feel something deeper. It's that love terrifies them more than rejection ever could. For the avoidant, friendship is a shield. It's the mask they wear when their heart is screaming for intimacy, but their fear of losing themselves screams louder. Today, we uncover why avoidants hide behind friendship, when what they really crave is love, the safety of friendship. For the avoidant, friendship feels safe. It offers connection without the demands of romance. In friendship, there are fewer risks. No constant closeness, no daily vulnerability, no pressure to merge lives. Friendship means I can enjoy your presence without losing my independence. It means I can care about you without having to expose the rawest parts of me. To the avoidant, this balance feels perfect. They get warmth without the risk of being consumed. But there's more beneath the surface. Avoidants grow up with a deep fear that love equals loss of self, that closeness equals suffocation, that intimacy equals danger. Friendship doesn't trigger that fear. It keeps emotions in a safe box. It allows them to feel connection while staying in control. Control is everything, because in romance, they fear losing it. But in friendship, they set the terms, the distance, the pace, the level of vulnerability. Friendship becomes a carefully designed refuge. Here's what's ironic. Friendship for them isn't just friendship. It's a controlled form of intimacy. They get to practice closeness, but without the terrifying weight of full love. To you, it may feel confusing because you sense something more. You feel the undercurrent. You catch the looks, the hesitation, the warmth that feels deeper than just friends. But when you bring it up, they retreat. They insist we're better as friends. Not because they don't care, but because caring too much feels unsafe. Here's the bottom line of Section 1. Avoidants use friendship as their compromise. It's intimacy on their terms. Connection in a safe container. A way to keep you close, while avoiding the terror of being fully seen, fully loved, and fully vulnerable. Because for the avoidant, friendship is survival. But love feels like risk. The fear beneath the label of just friends. When an avoidant says, I just want to be friends, it's rarely the whole truth. It's not that they don't feel the spark. It's not that they don't notice the chemistry. It's not that they're blind to what you bring. Deep down, they know, they feel, they want. But here's the truth they'll never say. Romantic love feels like danger. Friendship feels like protection. The avoidant carries hidden fears. Fear of rejection, fear of engulfment, fear of being truly known. They're terrified that if someone gets too close, they'll see the cracks. They'll discover the soft places they've worked so hard to bury. Friendship gives them cover. They can laugh, share moments, even open up, but only to a point. Because once you step into love, there's no hiding left. And that is their deepest fear. Think of it this way. Friendship is the shallow end of the pool. Safe, predictable, easy to step in and out. Romance is the deep end, where vulnerability pulls you under, where you can't always touch the bottom, where surrender is required. For the avoidant, the deep end feels like drowning, so they cling to the shallow end, calling it friendship. But here's the paradox. The avoidant wants intimacy. They crave connection like everyone else. Yet the closer it gets, the more they panic. It's not you. It's not that you're unworthy of love. It's that love itself feels unsafe. So instead, they reframe it. They say, let's just be friends. Not to reject you, but to protect themselves. This is why it feels confusing. You sense the pull. You feel the bond, the unspoken tension. You see the way they look at you sometimes, the moments of closeness that slip through before they shut down. It feels like more, because it is more. But for them, calling it friendship keeps it survivable. It's their escape hatch, their emergency brake, their way of saying, I care about you, but love might break me. And here's the hardest truth. When they choose friendship instead of love, it doesn't mean you imagine the connection. It means the connection was too real, too raw, too terrifying. Avoidants aren't running from you. They're running from their own heart. The hidden safety of friendship. They will laugh with you. They will share playlists. They will even text you back. But notice, they keep it light. Why? Because friendship is the only space where they feel safe. Safe from the demands of intimacy. Safe from the terror of being fully seen. Safe from the risk of being abandoned if they give too much. For the avoidant, friendship is not less than love. It is survival. When someone gets too close, when romance starts asking for consistency, when the expectation grows for deep emotional reciprocity, the avoidant's nervous system sounds an alarm. And that alarm says, you are about to lose yourself. So they retreat, but they don't disappear. Instead, they offer something safer, friendship. Friendship lets them control the closeness. Friendship means no daily vulnerability is required. Friendship means they can still get some connection, without the terror of engulfment. This is why so many people in love with an avoidant hear this line. I don't want to ruin what we have. Let's just be friends. It feels like rejection to you, but to them, it is self-preservation. Think about what friendship represents psychologically. Friendship is flexible. It doesn't demand constant reassurance. It doesn't require exposure of the deepest fears. It doesn't call for promises of forever. Love, on the other hand, especially with someone who has an anxious style, asks for presence, consistency, depth, and reliability. The avoidant can't hold all that weight, not without feeling suffocated. So what do? They sidestep the weight and offer you a lighter package. Friendship. But here's the paradox. They crave love just like you do. They crave intimacy, even as they resist it. They long to be chosen, held, wanted, but they don't trust themselves to survive it. Friendship becomes the compromise. It is closeness without collapse. It is intimacy without total risk. And you may notice something else. The avoidant often shines more as a friend than as a partner. As a friend, they are funny, helpful, attentive. As a partner, they may grow distant, cold, distracted. Why the difference? Because friendship doesn't activate the wounds. Friendship doesn't carry the shadows of childhood neglect, or the memory of a parent who withdrew when they needed love most. Romantic partnership does. It wakes the ghosts. It brings back the buried fear. If I let you all the way in, you will abandon me, or worse, consume me. This is the safety of friendship. They can care for you without fearing exposure. They can enjoy you without risking engulfment. They can be loyal, consistent, and even warm, because the threat of losing themselves is lower. But notice what this means for you. If you are someone seeking deep emotional intimacy, their offer of friendship feels like crumbs. You sense the wall. You feel the distance. You feel them choosing the shallow end of the pool, while you're already underwater, searching for connection. And this mismatch creates pain, because what feels safe to them feels insufficient to you. But let's pause here. Is friendship with an avoidant meaningless? No. In fact, it's often the very first stage of trust. Their nervous system can't leap into romance. It needs slow, consistent exposure to safety. That is why many avoidants fall for the person they can first trust as a friend. They test you there. They notice if you push for more. They notice if you pressure. They notice if you shame them for not giving enough. If you can stay steady in the friendship, without demanding or abandoning, you quietly show them. This closeness won't kill you. But here's the cruel twist. Many people in love with an avoidant can't stay in that in-between space. Because it hurts. Because the longing for more is overwhelming. Because waiting feels like self-betrayal. And so, they push. Or they walk away. And to the avoidant, both feel like proof. See, closeness isn't safe. They always leave or they always demand too much. So the friendship offer is not random. It is their shield. It is their breathing space. It is the closest they can get without collapsing under their own fears. For you, it may feel like rejection, but for them, it is the only door they know how to open. Now imagine this. You are the one person who makes them laugh without pressure. The one person who doesn't demand their constant presence. The one person who allows silence without panic. Slowly, they begin to notice something. Their body relaxes around you. Their walls don't need to be as high. And in that safety, something radical happens. They start to feel love. Not because you forced it, but because, in friendship, they finally found safety. So friendship isn't the end. It is the testing ground. It is the training wheels. It is the way their nervous system experiments with connection. But until they heal the wound, until they face the terror of intimacy, friendship will always be their safer home. That's why so many avoidants keep people in the friend zone. It's not that they don't feel. It's that they feel too much. And they don't trust themselves to survive love. This is the paradox of the avoidant heart. They long for intimacy. They run from intimacy. And in the middle, they build a tent called friendship. A place where they can breathe. A place where they can test. A place where they can hide, while still pretending they're not alone. That's the hidden safety of friendship for the avoidant. But what happens when they meet someone who doesn't push, doesn't abandon, and doesn't shame them for staying there? That's where things begin to shift, and where the possibility of true love can finally take root. The hidden loneliness of staying just friends. They say friendship is safe. They say it's easier. But what happens when safety becomes a cage? For the avoidant, choosing friendship instead of love feels like protection. They believe they're preserving the bond while avoiding the risk of intimacy. But beneath that choice lives a shadow, a loneliness they can't admit, a hunger they can't express, a silence they can't break. When an avoidant offers friendship, it isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's their way of saying, I want you close, but I can't handle the weight of love. On the surface, it looks like stability. No fights about closeness. No pressure to show affection. No demands for vulnerability. But inside, both people start to ache. The partner feels it first. They notice the distance. They notice the lack of warmth. They feel the invisible wall. It's like standing at the edge of a fire, close enough to feel the heat, but never allowed to step inside. And here's the truth. Friendship with someone who longs for love, but hides from it, isn't really friendship at all. It's a compromise. The avoidant may tell themselves they're protecting the relationship, but in reality, they're starving it. Because friendship cannot carry the weight of unspoken love. The partner feels undervalued. They start to question themselves. Am I not enough? Why won't they choose me fully? Why do I feel like a placeholder in their life? These questions eat away at self-worth. And this is the hidden loneliness of staying just friends. It doesn't matter how much time you spend together. It doesn't matter how many jokes you share. If the deeper need for emotional closeness isn't met, emptiness begins to grow. For the avoidant, this emptiness shows up differently. They might not even name it as loneliness. Instead, it comes out as restlessness, irritation, emotional detachment. They'll say they're fine. They'll insist they don't need more. But behind that mask, their nervous system aches for intimacy. Their heart knows the truth. Because every human being, even the most avoidant, is wired for connection. And friendship without depth feels like drinking water when your soul is starving. Here's where it gets even more painful. The partner often keeps giving. They keep trying to prove they're patient, understanding, supportive. They hope that, one day, friendship will transform into love. But it rarely does. Because friendship is the avoidance shield. And shields don't just drop. They have to be dismantled. This creates a cycle. The avoidant hides behind safety. The partner settles for scraps of closeness. And both stay unfulfilled. The hidden loneliness grows louder. It shows up at night when silence fills the room. It shows up when one person longs for a touch, and the other turns away. It shows up when best friends becomes a mask for unspoken grief. The tragedy is that both sides feel it, but neither names it. The avoidant fears that naming it will destroy the fragile peace. The partner fears that naming it will push the avoidant further away. So they both stay silent. Both stay hungry. Both stay lonely. This is why friendship, when used as a substitute for love, becomes more painful than rejection. Because rejection ends things. But friendship keeps you close enough to hope, while far enough to hurt. Think about it. You're sitting beside someone you deeply want, yet you can't have them fully. It's like breathing next to water while dying of thirst. And for the avoidant, the loneliness doesn't just stay hidden. It leaks out through passive-aggressive comments, through a sense of emptiness in their achievements, through their inability to feel truly alive in the connection. They might distract themselves, work harder, socialize more, scroll endlessly on their phone, anything to avoid the gnawing truth that their safe friendship is quietly killing their chance at real love. The partner, meanwhile, begins to dim. They give less of themselves. They protect their own heart. Until one day, the bond that was meant to feel safe feels cold, empty, and dead. This is the hidden cost. Not dramatic breakups, not explosive fights, but a slow, steady draining of connection. And when it finally collapses, both people look back with grief, not just because it ended, but because it never became what it could have been. Friendship, instead of love, feels like control. But in reality, it's loss. Loss of intimacy, loss of joy, loss of the chance to be truly known. This loneliness doesn't just haunt the partner. It haunts the avoidant too. They may never admit it, but deep down they know. They settled for safety and missed out on love. And here's the paradox. The very thing they feared by choosing love was the very thing that could have healed them. But instead, they cling to the illusion of safety. And safety, without love, isn't safety at all. It's silence. When they finally risk love instead of hiding, something changes the day an avoidant decides. Friendship isn't enough anymore. It doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen dramatically. It happens quietly, like the slow cracking of a frozen lake. For years, they've told themselves friendship is safer, that it keeps them in control, that it keeps their heart protected. But deep down, they know it's a half-life. And eventually, the ache becomes louder than the fear. So what happens when they finally risk love? At first, it's terrifying. Their body resists. Their mind screams, "Don't do it. You'll get hurt." But something pushes through. Maybe it's the realization of loneliness. Maybe it's the fear of losing the one person who's always been there. Maybe it's simply the exhaustion of running. Whatever the trigger, the avoidant begins to lean in. It starts small. They allow a conversation to go deeper. They admit a vulnerable truth. They reach out when they'd normally pull back. To the partner, these shifts might look tiny, but for the avoidant, they are monumental. It feels like walking barefoot across fire. But for the first time, they don't turn away. And here's the magic. When they risk love, they discover something they never expected. The world doesn't collapse. Their partner doesn't leave. Their fears don't become reality. Instead, they feel seen. They feel understood. They feel safe, not in hiding, but in opening. This is when transformation begins, because the avoidant learns a truth. That changes everything. Love is not the enemy. Love is not the danger. Love is the medicine. When they finally let someone in, they start to experience connection as healing, not as threat. The loneliness that haunted them in friendship begins to dissolve. The emptiness they carried quietly begins to fill with warmth. The silence inside them begins to speak, and their partner feels it too. They no longer feel like they're begging for scraps. They no longer feel like they're waiting at the door of intimacy. They feel chosen. They feel valued. They feel loved. This is the turning point, where friendship no longer needs to be a shield, where closeness feels less like danger and more like home. Of course, it isn't smooth. The avoidant will still stumble. They will still have days when they want to run. They will still feel the pull of old habits. But now, they have tasted something stronger than fear. They have tasted what it feels like to risk love and survive. And that taste changes everything. Because once you've felt the depth of true connection, friendship as a substitute will never satisfy you again. The avoidant learns that intimacy isn't loss of self. It isn't weakness. It isn't danger. It's expansion. It's growth. It's life. And here's what's beautiful. The very person they once kept at arm's length becomes the person they lean on most, the one they trust, the one they let in, the one who sees them fully. This doesn't erase the years of hiding. It doesn't erase the pain of the friendship phase, but it proves something powerful, that even the most guarded hearts are capable of love, and when they finally risk it, they bond more deeply than anyone expected, because they know how rare it is, how fragile it is, how much it cost them to get there. This is why love from an avoidant, once chosen, can feel so profound. It isn't casual. It isn't given lightly. It's a leap across fear, straight into connection. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of that leap, you know, it changes everything. The friendship wall crumbles. The distance dissolves. And suddenly, you're no longer standing at the edge of the fire. You're inside it, warm, alive, together. And maybe this is the truth we've been circling all along. Avoidants don't choose friendship because it's better. They choose it because it feels safer. But when they risk love, they discover the very safety they craved was waiting inside intimacy all along. If this spoke to you, drop a heart in the comments to let me know you're here. And if you want more insights like this, don't forget to subscribe, because the journey into love and out of fear is one we walk together.